Now let's make sure that's live and maximize. Alright, so now let's make sure everything is up and running. Where is... I just need to have the chat pulled up. Meanwhile... Make sure in the meantime I have the chat pulled up. Alright, so welcome to back everyone. So I'm now doing a podcast. Welcome to Podcast44. And we're going to talk about the situations around the world today. If you like this, make sure to hit like and subscribe and we'll get right into it. The political situation in Mali continues to unfold with jihadists and rebels attacking the country. Some kind of outside power has brought all these separatist groups together against the Malian government. Now, there's multiple powers that would fit such a bill to, do this. But what we know right now is that they are marching on several cities, and the jihadists, the JINM, who are an Al-Qaeda offshoot. They used to be part of Al-Qaeda before they kind of officially, distanced themselves a few years back. They officially distanced themselves from everything. And so we have Crux Live here because they're showing the live footage about everything. But they distanced themselves officially from Al-Qaeda. Now, these jihadists want one thing. They have one unified goal, and that is to overthrow the government of Mali. And they are working with the Azawad Liberation Movement, which is a separatist group in the north of the country, in order to accomplish this. Meanwhile, the AU has been sitting nonchalant. It's every single day that these world global organizations prove themselves to ultimately be useless when it comes to the prospects of keeping peace. And what is essentially going on is these jihadists are attacking the country. Now, the security guarantor for Mali is Russia. It's not France anymore. If this happened so much as 50 years ago, France would have been right on top of it. They would have sent their own troops. They would have sent soldiers into Bamako. But times have changed. And if France wanted help with this war, the one country that would have helped them, the United States, is on its own in a war in Iran. So, and we're not on good terms with the French government right now anyways. So, essentially, what these jihadists want is to stage a coup against the military government. Remember, the military government in Mali and Niger and Burkina Faso came together to form the AES, the Alliance of Sahel States. And the AES is still, well, they left ECOWAS, but they are still technically member countries of the AU. But the African Union has not been doing anything to help whatsoever. And the more you look into this, the more it is kind of becoming obvious that there is an external power at play here that is pressuring the government of Mali. Someone wants something to gain from this war. Someone wants something to gain from this war. And if you look at it from all around, these groups that are all working together now, by the way, have never had a more unifying goal than the overthrow of the Mali government. And while Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso left ECOWAS, they're still members of the African Union. But the African Union is doing nothing to help. Now, what's interesting about this is Russia. This would be the ideal time that Russia would intervene. After all, they have the Wagner Brigade, the Wagner Division, which is like, they're infamous for their own set of reasons. They're there already. They're there already. And so they have been doing every step they can against the government. The problem is that in Mali, Russia is on its own in a war. They're too bogged down in Ukraine. And as much as I wouldn't want Russia to gain another political foothold in some other region of the world, they are the only ones that can help against these jihadists and rebels. Because while the fight for Tuareg liberation, which that is what this is, the Tuaregs are a group of people in Mali. They live in the north, and they're mostly like historically nomadic tribal like people. They weren't necessarily like, you know, kind of like the way Turkmen were back in the earlier periods of history. They were more nomadic. And so what's essentially going on here is that they want a free Azawad, and that's nothing new. There's separatist movements all over Africa. It is a very ethnically diverse and culturally diverse continent. There's all manner of people and tribes and everything here. So what we're seeing live right now is not just a separatist movement. They are separatists and rebels allying themselves with jihadists. And something has caused all these people to come together. Historically, siding with these jihadists has not ended well for the people of Mali and the Azawad separatist groups. They have historically been steamrolled by Jenim because their similarities and their shared goals will only last for as long as the Mali government stands. Once the Mali government collapses, it's any man's game. It's every man for themselves. Everyone has their own political ambitions and their own agenda when it comes to this conflict. Be they jihadists or anybody else, for that matter. Now, the jihadists are jihadists. They believe that it is their God-ordained duty to bring death to any disbeliever in the glorious cause of Islam. And there's groups like this all over Africa. Now, what tells me there is an external actor on this is the way that France and French media are reporting on this situation. Ladies and gentlemen, the French, if you look at, say, for example, Let's see here. Pull it up. From any sort of French article. The way they are reporting on this, it's as if they want the jihadists to win. And that is because, ladies and gentlemen, France is bleeding. There are protests happening in Paris and Marseille. And so France has never thought once of a way they can survive without reliance on their former colonies in Africa. They have historically vied for control and power over this region. It is a very politically significant region to gain power and influence over. Now, what is telling is if we look on France 24 here, the way they report on this situation, it is as if they want the jihadists to win. The insurgent alliance strikes at the heart of Mali's junta, exposing the limits of Russian protection. The limits of Russian protection. France they may not be so financially, but they support the jihadist cause because the Mali government no longer sees itself as a pawn to be pushed around by French interests. This is an instance of a country wanting to be its own power in its own region. And France, some external power, has gathered all these jihadists and separatists and criminals to go against the Malian government. That is what is going on. And so if we read here from this article from France 24, on Wednesday, France called its citizens to leave Mali, quote, as soon as possible, following the weekend of attacks on government targets in cities across the country launched by jihadists and Tuareg separatists. Now, on Wednesday, they urged its nationals to leave Mali. Now, they said this is because the separatists are an extremely volatile security situation. And that it is. You cannot predict jihadists because they, in their mind, they have only been raised for one purpose and only know one way of living. Their religious doctrine, and that they are willing to fight and die for it. Travel to Mali is still strongly discouraged, regardless of the reason, the Foreign Ministry said in its updated guidelines. French nationals are advised to make arrangements to leave Mali temporarily as soon as possible on commercial flights that are still available. Now, this article does get something wrong. They say that JNIM is an Al-Qaeda affiliate. And I mean, if you were to say that some years ago, you would have been correct. But they've kind of officially, JNIM kind of became their own thing. Then you have ISGS as well, which is an ISIS-backed movement in West Africa. So, it is very interesting. Now, didn't realize my microphone was on that loud. Alright. It wouldn't be one of my streams without some kind of issues. Some kind of, technical issue. But, other than that, yeah. And people have even commented on, France's, articles. For example, article from Reuters basically suggests the same thing. France urges its citizens to leave Mali as soon as possible amid security risks. Now, obviously, and this is a travel update for the West African country, for France. The AU has been silent about what is going on. So, essentially, the African Union that would have intervened in all of this is just kind of sitting by the sidelines and not doing anything major. Now, here's the thing. The rebels have attacked multiple cities. If you look at the map of control, so this is the Azawad Liberation Front. Where's a better view of it? Give me the full image. There we go. This is the Azawad Liberation Front. All this green here. These are the separatists. This is the ISGS. And Jimin is all of this white in this area. So, they are repeatedly attempting to capture... Oh, great, I got a text from someone. They are repeatedly trying to attempt to capture these cities and these countries. Now, Mali is a significant, it's a big thing, because France used to get a lot of uranium from here, uranium. France is a nuclear power, and people forget that. They have, like, 300 nuclear weapons. 300 or so. And so, they used to get all their uranium for these weapons from Mali. But now, Mali is not really willing to provide them with this uranium anymore, considering the influence in Mali is shifting towards the Russians. Now, the Russians have had their own problems of dealing with things. And this is because they are too bogged down in a war in Ukraine. They're too bogged down in a war in Ukraine to be able to fight as effectively. And, as much as I hate to click on an Al Jazeera article, I don't know. Should I, as much as I hate to do this, should I click on an Al Jazeera article? 'Cause, yeah, alright. As much as I hate to click on an Al Jazeera article. Now, the Jinim, they're causing school closures and power outages. And even here, the military rulers struggle to respond. What you have seen is the AES have begun to fight back against the jihadists in Mali. And the terrorists are no match for Russian firepower. France tries to frame this as a positive, that these powers these rebels and these jihadists are attacking Mali. Now, we're going to shift over from Mali because things will continue to unfold here. But the situation in Iran has been the thing that's been on everybody's conscience. And I just want everybody to take note. The way Western media has covered this war is beyond shameful. They have sit idly by in the midst of massacres, essentially. No one talks about the massive amount of Iranians that were slaughtered in the streets prior to this conflict. No one has mentioned anything about that. BBC and CNN in particular have parroted Iranian state media. Propaganda, essentially. And it's become very obvious when you look at all these sides that there is a clear bias by some in the media who they try to shift focus to what's going on in Palestine. And while Israel, as a nation, is not, how do I say this in a nice way? They're not without a history. They're not without a history. And they're not without motives that can be questionable at times. But this war is not about Israel attempting to take Iran. Obviously, I don't think they'd have the powers to even do that. No. This war started for a very simple reason. And that is, Iran will never receive a nuclear weapon. Never. They cannot be. They will not be allowed to receive a nuclear weapon. And nor should they. Because the IRGC have proven themselves unstable already. In the outset of this war, they have attacked the UAE more than they have Israel. They've attacked the UAE. They have attacked Qatar. They have attacked Kuwait, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Azerbaijan, Turkey, Cyprus. They have attacked so many nations. Basically everybody. They've attacked everybody in the Middle East. They are the reasons this is a regional war. But the mainstream media will consistently blame Trump as if it is his fault when the people who escalated this war are the ones sitting with all the rockets in the Middle East, the IRGC, and the ones who are currently have the Iranian people being held hostage in their own country. Remember, everyone, 30,000 Iranians, and that's the lower estimates, perished because of the actions of this regime. So, we're going to the Associated Press. And in the UAE, in Dubai, a bulk carrier near the Strait of Hormuz has reported being attacked by multiple small craft. This was what Iran believed would be their tactic in this war. They knew they stood no chance against even beginning to even think about toppling U.S. global hegemony. No way. Not happening. Just, you can forget about it. They're not going to topple American hegemony. But they instead built their navy around multiple small attack craft. These are basically like patrol boats. But the idea with these small boats, and they would arm these. They arm these with rockets and guns, and they're not. Here we go. They arm these with rockets and guns, and they're pretty much designed to get in, blow crap up, and then leave. They are Iran's fast attack boats. And so they have been a problem in the Strait of Hormuz for a long time. This is what Iran built their navy to be. Not the big warships, not the submarines. Those perished within the opening days of this conflict. Iran, the bulk of its navy, its larger naval forces, are at the bottom of the ocean. They're done for. What we have to worry about, the issue with these are fast, they are not well armored, but they are well armed. They are the equivalent of a technical on the sea, on the ocean. So, they are fast attack craft, essentially. So, that's what Iran built their navy to do. So, what we're learning is that in Dubai, and this is a report from the UK, the British military's United Kingdom's maritime trade operations said on Sunday it marked at least 24 attacks in and around the Strait since the Iran war began. Now, this is something that the UK government is saying. And what I learned at this point is take what the UK says with a grain of, with like, you take them seriously, but not literally. And you do the same with Trump. But Starmer has been an absolute clown in this conflict. Britain deserves a better prime minister who will actually give a crap to protect British civilians. I would be ashamed of my prime minister if I was in Britain right now. Because they let this happen. They let this happen. I am going to... Someone added me to a group text, and I am going to leave it. How do I leave? There we go. There we go. Alright. Now, alright. I would be ashamed of the British government if I was in Britain right now. Now, all crew aboard the unidentified carrier were safe after the attack off Sirak in Iran, and the report warns vessels to transit with caution. As they should during the event of a U.S. blockade. A blockade in the Strait of Hormuz. Now, the Iranian officials... I am so sorry about this ad, by the way. I am so sorry. I'm sorry. Where's the chat? Pull that back up. There we go. Alright. Now, the Iranian officials have asserted that they continue to control the strait, and that ships not affiliated with the United States or Israel can pass if they pay a toll. Ladies and gentlemen, Iran continues to act like they have any amount of leverage in this situation. As if the U.S. military has not steamrolled their butt so hard that Beijing is feeling the effects of it. Now, this so-called ceasefire that lasted for 3 weeks, I wouldn't even call it a ceasefire. There were violations by Hezbollah. Hezbollah repeatedly violated their ceasefire with Israel, by the way. Repeatedly. But a lot of the fake news outlets, like CNN, are basically parroting the same statements we have heard for a while. And it's that, oh, you know, Trump always chickens out. Look, I don't care your opinions on the man. He's not perfect. But he has led us well in this Iran war so far. And if Congress is given the responsibility, the U.S. Congress is given the responsibility to decide where this war goes next, pray to God that they do something right for once in their lives. because it has been made very clear from this conflict. If anything, Iran must be stopped. Now there's more news coming out from the IRGC. And that is because Iran, now, according to many sources, Iran wants to deploy ladies and gentlemen, this is when they lost their minds. Reports as of May 2026. This is the Google overview of like every single source, and there's multiple sources on this. Iran wants to deploy kamikaze dolphins equipped with mines to blow. These people are clowns. How does anybody take this seriously? And the only people who take this seriously are the Democrats and the other leftists who are siding with the jihadists because they hate Trump. That's the only reason they would side with lunacy like this. Because this is beyond idiotic. So, as of May 2026, Iran is considering deploying trained kamikaze dolphins equipped with mines to target U.S. warships in the Strait of Hormuz. You know their navy is at the bottom of the ocean, and you know it's bad when they are so low on ships, they want to send dolphins to do the job for them. You know things are bad when you reach that level. Now, maybe this is because it's an unconventional tactic. I mean, I don't know what else you could say other than that it's unconventional. It really is just, that's probably the best way you could say it. Now, the reports emerged in a tense, like 2026 scenario where Iran seeks asymmetrical, unconventional tactics to counter American naval superiority in the Persian Gulfs. Now, it goes without saying that the experts didn't need to say this. This obviously raises major ethical concerns. You're training dolphins to be to basically pilot Japanese Zeros, cherry blossoms, okas. You're turning dolphins into bombs. And you know the U.S. has spy dolphins, but at least we never blew our dolphins up. I will say that. SeaWorld's probably going to be disappointed. Then again, they had a whole scandal with Shamu and all that. They're considering this. If this actually happens, I think PETA is going to finish off Iran. Honestly, PETA has gotten mad for much less than this, and this is lunacy. PETA's gone. Who am I kidding? They're probably too mad, like ranting about Pokemon or something. But yeah. But things are not doing well for the IRGC. So essentially, there is a bunch of internal conflict inside the Revolutionary Guard Corps. And it has basically devolved into like a dominant hardline military that, like, as it says, that controls key economic and political sectors. The issue with that is there's even disagreements among others. We saw the other day, people were saying death to the compromisers because they didn't want the treaty. They didn't want a treaty. They didn't want peace with the United States because obviously, you know, jihad is a holy war fought until death. Or whatever. So, this isn't really a power you can cleanly negotiate with. If that's, like, really even possible to say. At all. Let me check, make sure I can be heard.
Death, or whatever. So, this isn't really a power you can cleanly negotiate with. If that's, like, really even possible to say. At all.
Now, the IRGC have been resistant to this ceasefire. And that is because the talks in Islamabad, in Pakistan, well, they're not going the best, to put it bluntly. And there's a multitude of reasons for this. And it's mostly because the hardliners don't want a ceasefire. They don't want a ceasefire. And even worse than that, they've protested vehemently. They keep bringing these deals to the United States. And Trump, having any amount of brain power, has rejected these offers for ceasefire. For, like, an actual, like, end. And it's because the United States has three big major demands in this. Well, I guess you could argue there's four, but there's mostly three. And that is, we want basically a peace deal. We want them to stop their proxies, so, like, stop their proxy support, and we want them to end no more nuclear. No more nuclear, right? You can never have a nuclear weapon. And you're rich in uranium. It's got to go. You can't even keep it for civilian power plants because you have shown you will lie about that. And they have. They've lied repeatedly about this. Well, the IRGC don't want to discuss nuclear. They don't want to discuss nuclear. So essentially, they don't want to discuss nuclear. And so this is after several instances of them not even showing up in Now, there is a new proposal, and then we're going to Associated Press here. There is a new proposal, and that is, come on, load. There we go. President Donald Trump said on Saturday that he is reviewing a new Iranian proposal to end the war, but also expressed skepticism it would lead to a deal. I'll let you know about it later, he said before boarding Air Force One, adding that, you know what, I should do the voice. I'll let you know about it later, he said before boarding the Air Force One, adding that they're going to give me the exact wording now. That one probably wasn't my best, but it's like as best I can do. Shortly after speaking to the reporters, Trump posted on social media about the new proposal, saying that he can't imagine that it would be acceptable and that they have not yet paid a big enough price for what they have done to humanity and the world over the last 47 years. Donald J. Trump. Wonderful. Wonderful. I couldn't have said better myself. This regime is a scourge to humanity. And for their crimes against the Iranian people and the people of the world, they must pay. And that price might be bigger than you would think. Now, obviously, Iran have sent a 14-point proposal via Pakistan. In response, came to a 9-point U.S. proposal. And so there's like a whole bunch of back and forth and disagreements on this whole matter. No one can really like fully 100% agree on a way to end this conflict at all. And obviously, oil prices, they will continue to get worse, but they will get better, and they will be cheaper than they were before this war even began. Probably they might be the cheapest they've been in history for a long time, and that is because there will no longer be a hostile power in the Middle East. And the UAE has left OPEC, meaning there's not a lot of regulations on the amount of, oil that can be pumped. They can get a lot of oil out of things. But the Immortal Guard, let's go over to the Immortal Guard, of Iran, because these are the heroic Iranian people. And that is the fact that Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi will announce when he will be making his return to Iran. And he must lead the noble people of Iran to victory. He alone must do that. He alone must do that. And Pahlavi has called the Immortal Guard to attack security forces. The Immortal Guard are now taking to the streets. Now, if the U.S. Attacks resume, then obviously it'll be dangerous for them to do that. For the longest time when these attacks were happening, stay in your homes. That's what the Israelis and the Americans have been telling the people of Iran. Stay at home. Don't go outside. Don't go outside. There's drones. There's bombs dropping. It's just a bad idea. Don't go outside. Now, the Immortal Guard must free Iran from this regime of terror. The Western media outlets have not talked about the countless massacres against the Iranian people, and there's multiple agendas for doing this. It's because they either hate Trump, and they are so blinded in their hatred for him that they will sign with the Ayatollahs, or two, it's because of what is going on in Gaza and Israel. Everybody's kind of, hesitant on siding fully with Israel. Now, something interesting. The U.S. has asked for the Central Command, Pentagon has asked for Central Command permission to use the $50 million Dark Eagle, an untested hypersonic missile. Ladies and gentlemen, this would be the first time hypersonics are to be used in a combat zone, in an active war. Obviously, the Chinese tested hypersonics back 2020s or something like that. Hypersonics are emerging to be the new biggest arms race in the world and her militaries. And the U.S. plans to unleash a secret weapon against Iran, the hypersonic missile. And this is something that the United States has kept in their back pocket for quite some time now. Obviously, with the arms race for hypersonic missiles and the ability to pass a lot of air defenses, this is basically Iran's version of Hiroshima. The United States knows what it's doing. It has fought an opponent like the IRGC before. It fought Imperial Japan. Now, Imperial Japan was desperate, and when they were desperate, they wouldn't surrender. So we had to make the decision to drop the atomic bombs. Now, Iran faces the first weapon in a new arms race Obviously, it's the first for the US. Obviously, there's been hypersonic missiles before this. But this has not been used in active combat as far as we are aware. It hasn't been used in a really major war. Now, this is, if this move is approved, it would mark the first ever deployment of hypersonic weapons. Far later than similar systems deployed by Russia and China. And this would be America's first deployment. Better late than never, I suppose. But there are other reasons for this deployment being delayed. Because we're not in a war that would require such a deployment. This weapon has been in development since 2017. So, obviously, this would be a weapon to strike at military bases and IRGC installments and hit hard. They would not have any real capabilities of dealing with this because this is a hypersonic weapon. Okay? It's a hypersonic missile. Now, Iran has a weapon of their own that they wish to counter with. I think there's a long-range drone. Stop with the text. There we go. There is the Arash 2 drone. Now, if you're like me and thought that their stores were depleted, so did I. I thought their drone storage would be depleted by now. They launched more drones and missiles at the UAE than they have at Israel throughout Israel's entire existence. And that should just tell you that there is no leadership in charge here. This is supposedly one of the newest drones in their fleet, or one of them. This is a very long-ranged weapon. 2,000 kilometer drone, essentially. This is just talking about like what it is. It was recently demonstrated on March 21st of this year. And so they shouldn't have too many of these. I don't think they would have too many of these. A lot of their UAVs have already been used up in this war. So I doubt that these drones will make that big of a difference. Especially because you kind of already made the mistake of activating NATO's air defenses. That's what I think they would do with this. I think they would launch this towards, NATO countries. Now, this would still be humiliating for Britain, nonetheless, because they can only sit back and be entirely reliant upon the Americans to protect them. It's kind of humiliating in this effort. But it is a very long-range drone. Now, I wouldn't necessarily call this a drone. This basically looks like a TV missile, essentially. It's like a drone in name. If some of you that might be looking at this are like, that's not a drone. That's a modern version of the Buzz Bomb, the V1 or whatever. And yeah, it kind of does look like the Doodlebug in all honesty. It does kind of look like the Doodlebug in all honesty. But it's a loitering munition. Essentially. Now, it does have a multi-mode guided system, which could be scary. But at most, they would be using this for several reasons of this war. Now, they think this is going to have any effect on the new devastating capabilities that the U.S. is now bringing with a deployment of hypersonics. And to be fair, we are late to the party when it comes to hypersonic missiles. I mean, Russia have used some in Ukraine, and China have tested them. But the reason why we're late is because we haven't been in an active war until now. And so far, the U.S. military, China should be worried, because it's mostly been their systems that have sucked in this war. They have been disabled, they've failed. A lot of Chinese-made weapons are basically being revealed to have basically been bought from Temu, essentially. They fail. So, while this war continues, the question we need to answer is, will Trump be able to lead the U.S. Army to victory? Or will Congress reach their hands into things and mess stuff up? Because, ladies and gentlemen, and those that consider themselves too brazen to really be either, we have a bigger issue, and that is the Democrats' response to the Iran war have been problematic, to say the least. Now, the problem with these, I mean, look at From the Hill. John Fetterman, this is From the Hill. He says that their response to this war has been very disappointing, because it appears that some of the Democrats are rooting for Iran. And then in the same breath, they wonder why they're losing the midterms. Like, how can people still support this party? Because it's corrupt in a lot of very foundational areas. It's being ran by its most radical members, because the most radical members of the Democrat Party have voices so loud that it silenced the more moderates. Because what it used to be like is, you know, the Democrats would come along and they would run and they would be like, here's a political candidate with some more moderate, maybe some a bit more liberal policies that, you know, are different from what the Republicans are offering to the table at the time. And, you know, this is what I can offer to the country. And, you know, I can, you know, we vote and do all that. That's not what they're like anymore. Moderate politics in this party have died, essentially. Because it's all the most radical members. Why is that advertisement trying to give me a seizure? Why? Now, so the thing is that a lot of the Democrats are basically siding with Iran. And this is because they hate Trump so much they'll side with the Ayatollahs. It's Trump derangement syndrome, ladies and gentlemen. That's what I call it. We're like, you cannot like the guy and think he's, you know, you think, oh, he's not a good president or something. But in the same breath, you go and support Ali Khamenei or Moshtaba Khamenei or any of these other people in the IRGC. Well, that's just kind of proving your own corruption. And I say this. If you are someone who is in the Democrats' base of support, and you genuinely support the assassination attempts, and you watch people like Hassan Piker, or you support this regime, let me say this to you. I know this might be bad, might cause me to lose some subscribers, because it might be controversial, and might hurt people's feelings, but I feel like this needs to be said. You are a very dangerous person. Okay? You are a very dangerous person. Because with what happened to Charlie Kirk, you have basically proven that this mindset will drive people to do horrific things. Horrible things. These kids, his kids, are never going to see their father again because of the actions of that man. And you are a very dangerous person if you support this. And you need to reevaluate your beliefs. Because you do not stand for free speech. You claim that the president is being fascist, that he is killing your democracy. I asked people this: what is democratic about slaughtering your neighbors because you disagree with them? What is democratic about that? If this continues, America will basically become a third world country. We will be no better than the corrupt nations in Africa that barely have any democracy, or God forbid, North Korea. Yeah. Get some drinks. Now here's something that they've done that I think is this has been a problem. So, May Day. It's supposed to be this anti-labor, Labor Day or whatever. Well, it's becoming a communist rallying cry. And I need to let parents know. Parents, I'm not a parent myself, but I feel like any parent who is aware of what's going on should know this. We're going to hear from the Iran war and talk about just an update of the state of U.S. politics, because it's always a roller coaster, isn't it? Always a roller coaster. Now, here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. Democrat-aligned groups, including teachers' unions and students' organizations, have been actively involved in protests. Okay? This has been so... This will make you genuinely furious. Okay? So, here's the thing. Here's the problem with it. So, the Democrats are giving funding. So, let me see that. Funding. Student protests. On May Day. Where is it? Like May Day, teachers unions, student protests. Yeah. So essentially, it's student activism, and the teachers. So this is like Yahoo or whatever. I think this is like probably the best way to look at it. It says Fox News, but there's sources for this everywhere, and there's videos. So what is going on is teachers' unions and allied activist groups are training and mobilizing students for political activism. And you want to take a guess how much of that is probably Republican, right? None of it. None of it. Because it's what's been going on. These people are not right in the head. I mean, obviously, from all the assassination attempts against the president and all that. But, so essentially, the teachers' unions were funneling more than $1 billion. $1 billion with a B dollars in your tax revenue that you pay to the school systems to make schools better. No wonder the public education system is crap. They were funneling $1 billion of your money to send students to protest. What kind of world do we live in? Like, every day it's becoming more and more obvious that things are like a dream. Now, obviously, this is just insane. They've even been, like, getting bus rides for children to go on. This is basically weaponizing kids as political bargaining chips, essentially. This is weaponizing children as political tokens. It's genuinely messed up. I've had a bone to pick with the public school system for a long time. Because as someone with autism, it is genuinely not a friendly place for people that have special needs. They will try to do anything to fill their own pockets. These teacher unions will. And that even includes, like, cutting out benefits that people like me are supposed to have. Excuse me. Now, this is from Fox News, but there are other sources. But you notice the signs of these protests. These are not handmade. These protests are not genuine. They are paid. Why else would they all have the same signs? This isn't a conspiracy theory. If you use your brain power and try to reason with what is going on, you will reach the conclusion that something is not right here. Now, this is disgusting, obviously. And the teachers' unions should be steamrolled for this. Obviously. Because, I mean, look at this. The Huffington Post. This chilling right-wing movement is taking over classrooms. No, see? They are literally communists. The revolutionary communists of America. They're not hiding it anymore. They are saying outright that these radical people are communists. And so here's the most messed up thing. So the May Day 2026 Host Toolkit includes information for a coordinated day of action and calls for taxing the rich, which is a fallacy. You cannot do that because there is always something that the rich will be able to do that will just deflect the blame to somebody else. At the end of the day, somebody else will end up paying the money, and it won't be the rich. It always goes back to the middle class. Removing U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, as if the incidents associated with them are due to just the institution as a whole being bad and not needing better funding or needing training or needing, checks and balances. Possibly it's due to the fact that the person that was in charge of them prior did an absolutely horrible job and worked on mostly false intelligence reports. And expanding democracy. The guide states that the purpose of a no school, no work, no shopping day is to disrupt the violent billionaire takeover of our country and put working families first. No. Hold on. Your supporter base are the only ones that are doing the violence. The both sides narrative, that it's both sides, it's overwhelmingly just one right now. It's overwhelmingly just one. Overwhelmingly just one. And so they will continue to push for these narratives. Look at these signs. Paid. It's the only explanation. You don't all just make the same thing. Someone is mass printing this. And we know that there have been paid agitators in protests for a long time. So, with the recent redistricting that's happening, it is a big victory for the American people and God and Christians and the autism community. Because no more are we going to have to deal with far left Democrats running everything. The Democrat Party is dying, and that is a cause for celebration, ladies and gentlemen. So, we will follow the situation as it continues to unfold. Now, if we segue into entertainment. So, there is a huge problem. HBO is rebooting Harry Potter. A, quote, faithful reboot of J.K. Rowling's books is set to premiere on Christmas of this year. Now, why? That is genuinely the only question I have for this. Why? It's not like this series was that old. It's, 2000s or whatever. Then again, they're remaking anything. Sometimes they're remaking stuff that's like brand new. With Disney remaking Moana, and we'll get to that. We'll get you your daily dose of Disney. But a faithful reboot of J.K. Rowling's books is set to premiere on Christmas 2026. The series promises a much deeper and more detailed adaptation. Now, you might be thinking, this is good news. This is great news, right? They're going to give us, all the scenes from the books that are really good that, didn't make it into the movie, right? Well, there's problems with this. And that is, and this is the thing, I actually like this guy. That's the problem with this. I actually like this guy. He was in Tenet, I believe. I forget his name. But of all the characters to race swap and make black, you probably chose one of the worst ones, didn't you? What? Snape. I mean, this is the problem. He's actually a really good actor. Okay? This is like Saturday Night Live, but even Saturday Night Live made ridicule of this. The problem with this whole issue is that Snape being black, the whole thing about Snape is he's an asshole, right? To Neville, to a whole bunch of other characters. That's his whole character here, right? Now, obviously, he has his Reformation arc and whatever. Well, it's not even like a Reformation arc. You kind of realize he was kind of good the whole time. Snape is a morally gray character, okay? Morally gray. Now, there's a lot of problems that could happen to the narrative with making Snape black. And that's the fact that Harry is just going to come across as being very racist. Because he immediately accuses Snape of a lot. He accuses Snape of a lot of things. So, because, he immediately assumes it's Snape. Harry's just going to seem racist. And also, you want to give, representation. I genuinely understand the argument for representation. But if you're going to race swap a character, choose a character that makes freaking sense. Because Snape does not. Snape's whole thing is his love for Lily. This makes so many characters. This inadvertently makes so many characters racist. It's not funny. It makes Snape racist, or not Snape racist. It makes James racist, for he does to Snape. It makes Harry racist for immediately, accusing Snape of things. Like, this is, you choose, Snape being black, why? Like, genuinely why? And also, it doesn't make sense that he would be in, like, Slytherin, also. Like, they race swap, they chose, like, some other random... You might be like, wait, wasn't there like a black Slytherin guy in the movies? Well, that was because the guy that played, I think it was Crabbe, didn't return for the final installment. So they got somebody else. They got somebody else just to be like the one-off guy in that scene. If I recall correctly, Crabbe is like supposed to die. I think it's either that or go. It's been a while since I read the books. I know one of them dies. Someone will probably correct me in the chat if I'm wrong. One of them dies. The problem with making Snape black is you go like the problem with this is Harry's going to come across as being so racist just because of the narrative of the books. Like But yeah, I genuinely do not know who approved this. And I mean, I will defend Rowling on a lot of things, but this is not one of them. Oh, Papa Isidro, or known for May I Destroy You. Well, I think I know him better from, I think he was in Tenet. I think he was in Tenet, wasn't he? I don't know if I'm right about that or not. No, he wasn't in Tenet. Okay, I must have been Mandela effect. I swore it was this guy. Thing is, I know I actually like this guy as an actor because I have seen some of the stuff that he is in. That's the issue. Like, as an actor, he's done some stuff that's actually like good. But I mean, this is not one of those. This is definitely not one of those, for sure. So I genuinely don't know what they're thinking. Now, the Amazing Digital Circus is ending. One of the worst fan bases on the internet I have ever seen. Genuinely, the stuff that comes out of this has been horrible, okay? You have the stuff on Skibbity Farms with its haters that have been against been against it. And all of the targeted harassment campaigns, but the targeted harassment against Goose, the creator, is finally doing it. And yeah, so this is going to have trying to avoid spoilers here. So this will follow the events of episode 8. Now, why this is ending? It's ending because of everything that happened with Goose. She is done with this fandom. And I would be too if I was her. I would be genuinely done with this. Because this wasn't even her biggest passion project in the world. This blew up completely by accident. Okay? This blew up by accident. Now, her work mirrors its source material exactly. Its inspiration. I have no mouth, but I must scream. There's a lot of plot elements that are taken verbatim. So I already know this might cause the biggest uproar in the whole of the community, But They're screening it like it's going to be... Crap, I need more drinks. They're screening this like it's going to be a movie. So they're showing it in theaters, and maybe I'll head out to my theater if it's playing there. I don't know if they choose some like nowhere state in the middle of the South, the Southeast. Well, I guess we're kind of more central-ish. I don't know, like we're a little bit off from the center from where I'm at, but then again, they might because it's the capital of where I live. So I don't know. I mean, I was surprised that my movie theater was showing Godzilla -1, so that's something. But the final hour-long episode is scheduled to be released on YouTube and Netflix, and there's like theatrical screenings that are going to begin in June. I doubt it's going to be in theaters where I'm at, so I'm probably going to like be able to see it on YouTube and Netflix, honestly. But it's a long time coming for the end of this series. After nonstop harassment from its own fans towards its creator, Goose just wants to end it. And you know what? She has every right to. She doesn't have to listen to the most toxic parts of the fan base that want this show to continue. And obviously, Glitch is going to, get any amount of money from this that they can. Obviously, they will profit from this one way or another. They will find a way to profit from this. Okay, they're absolutely going to find a way to profit from everything. Now, with that out of the way, let's talk about one of the most insane situations. And that is the Avatar, The Last Airbender movie, which was under the working title, The Legend of Aang, The Last Airbender, which was set, and it is still set, for a Paramount Plus release in October of this year. The entire movie was leaked online. And a 26-year-old man in Singapore was arrested after he hacked a server to obtain the film. Now, this has gone too far, okay? There's been so many leaks in recent memory. Was the leak for the Has-Been Hotel Season 2. There were leaks for, like, characters and plots and significant events and whatnot, and, like, shows and TVs and whatnot. An entire movie, okay? Like, the whole movie. And let's see, The Hollywood Reporter did an article on this. The movie leaked months ahead of its premiere on Paramount Plus. An anonymous X account claimed that a Nickelodeon employee... Stop the ad. Go away. Okay. A Nickelodeon employee emailed him the entire film. That appears to not be the case. And so, the person behind the anonymous X account, I'm Still Dissin', which is kind of a funny name, figured he was just trolling when he leaked the 2-minute long clips of The Legend of Aang, The Last Airbender. On Sunday, a friend from his hacker days sent him a full copy of the movie. And he didn't know what it was until he looked it up. I just saw it's a Paramount Plus thing, so I decided I'd troll a little bit by posting the videos. This man has caused financial damage to this company, and now Paramount is going to be stuck playing whack-a-mole, essentially, because it's online now. You take down one source, 5 more of it are going to pop up. it's not, you can't just get rid of it. It's not that easy. And so, within hours, the videos reached the far corners of the internet. And that included 4chan, which apparently 4chan still exists, I guess. I never do anything on 4chan anymore. A community of superfan hackers discuss trading movies and TV shows that they've illicitly obtained amongst themselves and, at times, sell their alls to the highest bidder. That's illegal, by the way. Don't do that. There's no problem with, say, ripping, like, a copy of a film or something if you're not going to sell it. If you're not selling it for money. When you try to sell it for money, like these guys are doing, that's when it becomes a problem. Now, posters egged him on to release to leak the full film. And by Monday, an unrelated account that belonged to someone in Singapore leaked the full movie. So, this is financially devastating. Okay? And I mean, this is no stranger to it. The Revenant and 030 and the Game of Thrones all hit the internet days or even weeks before they were officially released. But you'd have to go as far back as 2017 when hackers stole episodes of the newest season of Orange is the New Black in the shows of its post-production vendor in a bid to extort Netflix. That was a messed up situation, by the way. But this was a huge title, a full movie. Okay? A full movie. Now, what is going on here is that Paramount wants to seek legal action against this. Ladies and gentlemen, legal action. He is facing the man who was arrested, a 26-year-old Singaporean man. He was arrested in April for hacking a media server to leak the unreleased movie. He is facing up to 7 years in jail and a $50,000 fine. The suspect, who originally leaked parts of the film on social media, now faces severe charges for unauthorized access to computer material. So they're trying to make an example of this individual and protect the film. And they're probably trying to copyright strike it everywhere it pops up. Now, this is funny because studios have been kind of strong-arming each other about what movies they can show and can't show for quite a while now. So it's been that sort of situation again. Now, this is obviously insane that a full movie essentially just got leaked. But if this legal action goes through, Paramount seeks to make it harder for people to leak stuff like this again. I get being passionate as a fan. I genuinely understand. But people need to realize they are doing more damage to this film by leaking it than anything else. For that matter. Anything else. And it's going to do immense amount of damage to the studio because leaks like this, where you leak an entire movie, you're stuck playing whack-a-mole if you're the studio because it's on the internet now. And when you're on the internet, like, things remain forever. They can delete one they can delete 5, they can delete like 10 copies of it. But for every one they get rid of, 5 more are going to spring up. And that makes it difficult. Very difficult to deal with. Indeed. And, ladies and gentlemen, that includes our podcast for this morning. If you like, make sure to hit like and subscribe. I'm the Phantom Agent 44, seeing to you live from our agency headquarters. And continue the fight, and we will be the media, not the mainstream media, But come to get your news from someone who actually knows what is going on, and us who actually have a passion for things and understanding research, and not someone who parrots state propaganda. Because it's easy to fall into that trap. If you like this stuff, make sure to hit like and subscribe, and I'll be trying to do this on other mornings as well to give updates for situations. But I will talk to you guys next time. I'm the Agent 44. Peace out. And I will now close this up and deal with the constant calls I'm getting because they're generally getting annoying. So, peace.